Harimi, harimi, al tirai, harimi, al tirai. Imri le'arei Yehuda, hinei Elokeichem. Harimi, harimi, al tirai.
Hello, welcome to Pirkei Avos with Rabeinu Yonah. We are in chapter 2, Mishnah Gid Daled. Rabbi Elazar Aimer, Rabbi Elazar says, have a shakut l'umat Torah, be totally involved and absorbed in Torah learning. V'da ma shetashav l'apikoros. Know what to answer a heretic. You should know how to answer. The heretics come and they say, seemingly, this might seem to imply, God forbid, the Torah is not true. You should know how to answer them. Explain to them why they're wrong, why they are misinterpreting things. Because in my experience, it's been the heretics. They tend to think they're very bright, and then when you spend time and actually analyze their arguments, they are quite foolish. V'dalif ne'mi ata'amel, and know before who you are exerting effort. V'neman hu ba'al malachtecha she'yishalem lecha pulasecha, that the master is trustworthy, is trusted to pay you your reward, your payment. Let's see Rabeinu Yonah. You should learn Torah so that you should know how to answer heretics. There are heretics out there, right? Judaism is not just a religion of deed, a religion of action. It's also a religion of creed. There are certain beliefs. The Rambam's 13 principles of faith. He encapsulates the 13 things that a Jew has to believe in. If he doesn't believe in those 13 things, he's viewed as outside of the Jewish people. Now, it might make a difference if he is a person that just doesn't know any better versus a person who is knows better and is just a heretic, lahachis. That might make a difference. If anyone's interested in this topic, please send me a message. I can provide you interesting reading material on it. If you don't answer the apikoros according to his arguments and his lies, the people will see that the apikoros is right, and then they'll believe him. So I think there could be a difference here, that if, I don't think there's a mitzvah to go out and fight with every apikoros, right? On the contrary, the Mishnah in Mishlei in Proverbs, it says, Al ta'in ksil, don't answer a fool, and you can't go around answering every foolish heretic out there. But this sounds like when there's someone making a public statement of heresy, that if you don't, and perhaps they came to you and they start arguing with you and you don't answer them, then people are going to think the heretic is right because you don't have what to answer them. And you'll find that the name of heaven will be profaned. It's definitely, if this comes up practically, definitely worth it to speak to your halachic authority, whether it's worth it, or which cases one should answer and not be cursed. But definitely what it sounds like when it's public for sure and he's approaching you. The apikoros that we're talking about here, the heretic, he rejects the oral Torah. He believes in the written Torah, believes the written Torah is given by God, but he rejects the oral Torah. In fact, Rav Yasher bar Soloveitchik famously wrote that someone who even not only denigrates what the oral Torah has to say, but denigrates the sages of the oral Torah, is also a heretic. This is someone who presents Torah falsely, right? Perhaps he uses a verse in the Torah to apply it where it doesn't apply, to forward some agenda, perhaps his political views. He finds a verse in the Torah and he misapplies it to further his political views, right? I heard somebody say that Loto, it's not good for a man to be alone. So that's a proof for non-halachic marriage, homosexual marriage. Even though it says later that the homosexual act is prohibited. And even though that same verse right after it says it's not good for a man to be alone, he should cleave to his wife. That's an example of being megala panim b'torah shalok halacha, that a person is misrepresenting the Torah. People often do this to further their political beliefs. Someone also did this regarding v'hafta mesager, love the stranger. They said because of that we have to protest Trump's ban on immigration. Now, I'm not saying politically whether Trump was right or not. That's everyone's entitled to their political beliefs. I'm just saying to apply the pasuk, the verse v'hafta mesager, where the Talmud clearly says it's talking about converts to Judaism and it's not talking about migrants from Mexico. That could also be megala panim b'torah shalok halacha. Various things. There are many examples of this. The idea is that we don't go to the Torah to support our political beliefs. We look in the Torah for what it says and we analyze it objectively. Lashon apikoros, the word apikoros, where does it come from? Lashon hefker, who it means hefker, just like freewheeling, doing whatever you feel like. And know before who you work, who you toil. When you are debating the apikoros, and you answer what he says, be careful that he doesn't try to convince you. This is a danger of. This is why we don't read heretical material, even if we're not believing in it. We don't read it because there's a Yetzer Hara. There's a Yetzer Hara, just like there's a Yetzer Hara for Taiva, and a Yetzer Hara for Gaiva, and different evil inclinations to want to do sins. There's also an evil inclination. There is a spiritual force, a negative spiritual force that pushes somebody to want to believe in heresy. So a person, when he's debating this heretic, has to constantly remind himself that he's doing it for Hashem, lest the heretic's words sway him. Why would the heretic's words sway him? Obviously, it's nonsense. Because there is a spiritual Yetzer Hara. This is not a purely logical thing. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, gets people and tries to get them to believe in heresy, just like it tries to get them to do other sins. There's Rav Chanan Wasserman has a famous piece on this. If anyone's interested, please let me know. That's why we don't investigate these things unless, and we don't read heretical books. We don't read about other belief systems, things like that. We don't do that because we don't want to be tempted to go after it. Because we're not purely intellectual. We are human beings, and human beings have to act accordingly. You might follow what he has to say. Know before who you are toiling. So we see there's definitely a danger. So if you're not debating an apikoros, then and there's no reason for you to know it, then you should definitely not be reading it. That's why I have a book called Why Open Orthodoxy is Not Orthodox. There's a lot of heretical stuff that we had to go into there. So if someone doesn't have to deal with open Orthodox, then I would recommend you not buying my book because there's no purpose in reading it. When you're learning the Torah, your intent should be with this. And with this, you'll know how to answer the heretic. When you work hard in Torah, you should delight in it. We find the Torah says, Hashem kanani reishis darko. It says, the Torah says, Hashem made me at the beginning of his way. And it'll be a nursling by me, and I'll delight in it every day. Hashem delights in the Torah. Hashem delights in the Torah. You should also do this. This is what it says. Playing in the earth, and it's a delight to people. Just like the Torah was a delight to Hashem before the creation of the world. So too a person should play with it and delight in it after the creation of man. Now, what's the difference between shashuim and what does exactly mean misachekes? I'm not totally sure. I'm not really sure. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Okay. Know who the one is that's asking you to do this work, and he's Neman, that he's going to pay you. So don't think that you're not going to get paid for your mitzvos, for your studying Torah. Now the Rabeinu Yonah is going to have a question here. Shelo tasem malechas Hashem Ramia. The work of Hashem shouldn't be sneaky. You shouldn't try to sneak by Hashem with faking your work and not doing your work properly, not doing Torah learning properly. Because listen, it's Hashem here. We can't hide anything from Hashem. Don't think you're going to sneak anything by him. How could you not work hard in Torah and not get reward for it? And don't worry, God's going to repay you. Even though we said earlier, here's the question. We said earlier that you shouldn't do a mitzvah in order to get reward. So how here could we be saying that know that the one who commanded you in the Torah is somebody who's going to repay you? So here it seems that we are supposed to focus on the reward when we study Torah. But earlier it said that you should not focus on the reward. So how do we square this? So that's what the Rabeinu Yonah asks. So he says, he says, in order to fight the Yetzer Hara is always trying to convince us not to study Torah, not to do mitzvahs. If you need to fight the Yetzer Hara, you should think, okay, it's worth it, I'm going to get reward. So the Yetzer Hara is going to try to come at you with all things, all types of arguments why you shouldn't learn, why you shouldn't do mitzvahs. You should tell him, listen, I'm going to get reward for it. It means that a person has to serve Hashem not in order to get a reward. It's just when you're fighting with the Yetzer Hara, there's a good thing to tell the Yetzer Hara. Now he says something else. But furthermore, we're not saying here, this mission isn't saying that you should serve Hashem excuse me, for the reward or not to get punished. They're just like a person has to investigate and know Yichudu Shalmak of the oneness of God, Ugdulaso and his greatness, Utchunaso and his nature, Venifla and aspects of him and his wonder is Asher Asakadeh Lahosapu Ava, because when a person thinks about all these things about God, he'll start to love God more. So too a person has to know that he's going to get rewarded, that Hashem is trustworthy, so it were, that he's going to give reward. And the person should think, wow, Hashem gives infinite reward to the people that do his will, and with that a person will come to love Hashem even more. So a person doesn't do the mitzvahs because of the reward, but the Mishnah here is telling us to contemplate that Hashem gives reward, so that a person should love Hashem more for the goodness that he does. Even though he's the master of everything and everything is his. And even though therefore Hashem's the owner of everything and we're really like his servants. We're required to serve him even if there was no reward. And we tell him, nevertheless we get reward. So a person, when he thinks that God doesn't owe him a reward for anything, Hashem created us, we should automatically do what he says. So when a person should do that, and now when we realize Hashem gives us a reward, that will add more love to Hashem. And the person should serve Hashem out of fear and out of love. Okay, so we learned a lot. We learned about a person should study Torah so that he knows that an ants are not bikoros, a heretic. Certain cities where you have rabbis, I'll say quote unquote rabbis, they're kind of fake rabbis and they say things, and there aren't any Torah scholars in the area that could argue with them and prove them wrong, so they get away with saying crazy stuff, and then it gets publicized. But there's certain cities like Lakewood, Baltimore, where you have so many Torah scholars that a person would never dream of saying something like this because he would be disproven and shot down in 2 seconds. So that's why it's important to have Torah scholars, so to prevent any of these deviant or heretical views of Judaism being spread by those that seek to do harm to the Jewish people. Okay, it's a very interesting topic. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk further, please feel free to reach out. And everyone have a great day.